Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Pallavi Sharma, and I go by pronouns she and her. I'm a practicing artist, an independent curator, and educator. I teach here at CCA in Critical Ethnic Studies program. I'm very thankful for this opportunity to host Catalyst for Change Asian American Narratives, a series of artist talk featuring San Francisco Bay Area Asian American artists, curators who integrate their identity, personal and community experiences, and address social and political issues through their work. We are very honored to have our guest speaker, Reiko Fujii, today with us. A very warm welcome to you, Reiko.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. This program is part of the Creative Citizens in Action initiative at CCA and is funded by an endowment gift to support the Deborah and Kenneth Novak Creative Citizen Series, an annual series of the public programs focused on creative activism. Past weekdays has been tough. Two mass shootings. My deepest condolences to the relatives and friends of victims. Shootings in Atlanta is one of the most violent episodes of recent anti Asian hate crime incidents against Asian Americans. There's an urgency to have more platforms like this to come together to hear Asian American voices, to dismantle racism and anti Asian violence and discrimination in all forms, and understand that it is deeply rooted in our country's history and culture. I'll begin with land acknowledgement. California College of the Art campuses are located in Houston and Yellow, also known as Oakland and San Francisco, respectively on the unceded territories of Chochenyo and Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who have continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. We recognize the historic discrimination and violence inflicted upon indigenous peoples in California and the Americas, including their forced removal from ancestral lands and the deliberate and systematic destruction of their communities and culture. CCA honors Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future, here and around the world, and we wish to pay respect to local elders, including those of the lands from which you are joining us virtually today. If you are unsure of whose land you are currently residing upon, we encourage you to visit native-land.ca. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce our guest speaker today, Reiko Fujii. Reiko Fujii has been teaching, creating, and exhibiting art since 1989 and has shown her work extensively in the Bay Area and other venues in California. Fujii was the recipient of the Susan Sudden Bulle Award, John F. Kennedy University, and received the Stephen P. Corey Award at the 2006 PCBA Bookworks exhibit. Fujii's short documentaries have been shown at the Women of Color Film Festival, the Berkeley Small Films Festival, and the Society of California Pioneers in San Francisco, and have been shown on several cable TV stations in San Francisco Bay Area. She received an MFA from John F. Kennedy University and BA from UC Berkeley. Fujii was born in Riverside, California, and has a studio and lives in the Bay Area. Very warm welcome to you, Rico, again. And screen is all yours. After your presentation, before we proceed to question and answer session, we will switch off the recording so that we can have candid conversations with you. So please.
Thank you, Pallavi, and thank you also to the California College of Arts for inviting me to talk about my work. I also appreciate all the people who have joined tonight, so thank you for coming. I could see a few people that I know, so hi out there. Okay, so being an interdisciplinary artist, I will use whatever material, excuse me, materials I feel will convey my thoughts in visual form. I have worked with kiln form glass, video, book arts, monoprinting photography, found objects, and installations. Some of my favorite subjects are related to my family, especially my 2.5-year-old granddaughter. I also love to photograph birds, nature in general, and people. But for this talk, I will concentrate on the art I have done about my ancestors as a basis for creating and engaging in art as a form of activism and healing. Now, let me get a drink of water first. Okay. So I'm going to start out with the history of my family. So this is my father's family, and I don't do a lot of work about my father because I don't have a lot of pictures of him when he was younger or even during his life. I have them when he was older, since I was taking photographs, but this is one that I found, and it was taken in Japan. And my dad is the one, I don't know if you could see can you see my arrow? He's on the right, he's on my right, and he's on, so he'd be on your right too, right? So he's way over here. And his mom is back here, and his dad is here in the middle. And the little boy that his mom is carrying is my Uncle Shogo. And then the person in the back with the glasses on is my Uncle Masaki. And then on the left is Uncle Aki. So those are all of his brothers. My father also had a sister, but she died of tuberculosis when he first got to Japan when he was 12 years old. He never got to meet her because she was already in the place where they have the tuberculosis patients, and then she died there. So he was born in California, actually. He was born here in the United States, but then when he was 12 years old, his father and mother decided they should go back to Japan because his sister was really sick with tuberculosis. So they went back to Japan, but by the time he got there, she died soon after that. So he never got to meet her, even though he was 12 years old, because he was born in California, and then he went to Japan when he was 12. He missed meeting his older sister, who was around 20. So that's one photograph that I have. Okay. So I was saying that my dad was born in America, and then he went to Japan when he was 12. And so when someone is born in America or is a second generation, they're called Nisei. But my dad, because he was educated in Japan for part of his life, he's called a kibe. And so he was educated in Japan for part of his life, and then he went back to America. That's a kibe, as I understand it. They have some kind of part of their education in Japan. So he came back. His dad said he was hard to handle. So his dad decided he should go back to America. So he came back to America right before Pearl Harbor struck, so or was struck. And so it was right after the bombing, and there was a lot of prejudice, and there was a group. So my dad had worked for my aunt's in my aunt's produce stand, and he meticulously had put up a display of fruits, and there was a group of Caucasian men who were coming through, and one of the guys came by and he completely pushed the stand down, and all the fruits went flying and all over the floor. And so my dad was really angry, and he practiced judo, so he could have hurt the man, but his aunt said, "Don't do it," because I'm sure he probably would have been killed, because there was a group of men who were coming through and just terrorizing everything. So that happened, and he was afraid now. He was afraid to be out because there was so much of that going on and so much prejudice, that he actually volunteered to go to Manzanar before it was even done. Before there was a roof on his barrack, he was there. There was no hot water. And my dad told me this story several times, that the wind blew in Manzanar so hard in around 5 o'clock, and he had he liked to wear pomade in his hair. And so that wind just blew up all of the sand in his hair. His hair just got so sandy, and he couldn't wash it out because there wasn't any hot water yet. So you can imagine how uncomfortable that was. But that's a story that he told me about. And when about 60 years later, he remembered that story. He remembered how the guy came by and pushed down his produce stand. So those kinds of memories really stuck to him. So let's see. Okay, so before he went to Manzanar, he was told that he had to burn anything that was from Japan. That he had a wooden sword that he had carved, and he was really proud of it, and he loved it, and he had to burn it up because his aunt told him he needs to burn everything that has to do with Japan. So he had kind of a really hard beginning when he came back to America. So these two jars here, they have, I work with glass, as I said, and the jars have photos on them that I sent in and ordered as ceramic decals. And then I fused them onto the glass at 1250 degrees. So I really know a lot about my mom's side of the family, the Inaugura family, because that was my first home after I was born. And I think I really bonded with my grandmother and my Auntie Lola, who took care of me. So I have a lot of information about the Inaugura side of the family. So, okay, so my cousin, okay, the Inaugura family actually still lives in Riverside, some of the family members. And my cousin Susie Kuramia and I decided we were going to make a book about our family, the Inaugura family. And Susie is a talented artist and graphic designer. So she put the book together and I managed the project. But it turned out to be a really huge collaboration with the whole Inaugura family. And I have, my mom had 6 siblings, and there were my grandmother had 26 grandchildren. So there were lots of people that contributed to this book. And this is one of the pages in the book, and you can tell that it's very professional looking. because my cousin is very professional. And this page tells you about my great grandfather coming over right here. Risa Burrows Smiya is born in Japan, and then my grandmother Hanai Naba is born in Ibaragi, and then they get married in 1898, and then my grandfather Chikayasu Naba was born, and then his brother Hideo Inaba was born, and then so here he had these two boys and his wife, and my grandfather immigrates to the United States without them. So he left them behind. I think he was hoping that he could maybe they couldn't afford to have everybody go, but he felt like he wanted to start a better life in the United States. So he came over, and so he came over and he started his own farm, his own produce business by going door to door and selling the vegetables that he grew. He also worked in an orange orchard when he first came over. But it was 13 years. Can you imagine that? 13 years before his wife and his two sons came over to the United States. So the kids were growing up. They were old by the time he saw them again, which I think is, I don't know, I really think about that. But then I think of some of the guys that I've met here, and some of them have left their families in other countries and they've come to work here, and they send back money to their family, and then they at some point they might get enough money where they just feel like they can go back to their country again, and they're here for years too. So it's a kind of a similar situation. So this is a mono print that I made of my great grandfather and my great grandmother, and this I think is their wedding picture. So this picture is from 40 years late. I mean, it's not 40 years later. It's in 1940. So you could see Risa Burrow is in the middle, kind of in the middle, and then Hanai, his wife, is next to him. But now in 1940, he has not only his two sons, but he has two more daughters. This is my great grandfather. And then, so then Chikayasu, who's my grandfather, now has 6 children. And Hideo, his brother, has 2 boys. So the family has really grown. And this is and then also there's my great aunt by marriage, Chio, and then my grandfather's wife, Kiri, who's sitting on the left side of my great grandfather. So now the family has grown, and this is 1940, and they're all living either near the farm or on the farm. My great uncle Hideo, I think he's my great uncle Hideo. He's a dentist, and so he's living in town near his office with his family. So 2 years later, they all get arrested. The whole family gets arrested and is taken to the concentration camps. And my grandfather was arrested first. He was taken, he and his brother Hideo were both arrested. And that was on February 21st, 1942. And many of the prominent Issei's in the Japanese American community were arrested at that time. They went to several camps. They went to Tuna Canyon Detention Center. That was the first one. Then they went to Lawrenceburg internment camp in New Mexico. Then they went to Santa Fe Detention Center. And then that was in New Mexico. And then they finally ended up at Crystal City Alien Enemy Detention Center to be reunited with their families. And the rest of his family, they went to Manzanar on May 1st, May 8th, 1942. So it was a few months after they were, that my grandfather and his brother were arrested. So after 7 months of separation, my grandfather Chikayasu wrote a letter to the Justice Department on September 30th, asking if he could be reunited with his wife and 7 children. They were reunited 8 months later at Crystal City Alien Enemy Detention Center. And this is a letter that I blew up and put on the wall next to his suitcase. And the letter asks, this is the letter that asks for, well, he states what a great citizen he is because he loves America. He's never done anything wrong, never got arrested. And he just was trying to prove that he was this really good citizen. And he just was asking if he could just be reunited with his family. Well, finally, 8 months later, he met his family at Crystal City. And it had been over a year since he had seen them. And it was the first time that he met his son, his youngest son, Anthony, because Anthony was born a month after my grandfather was arrested. So can you imagine that my uncle Tony was over a year old when he first met his dad. So I made three pieces based on the stamp on this envelope. It's called Detained Alien Enemy. Well, it says Detained Alien Enemy Male Examined, but I took the words Detained Alien Enemy and I made 3 pieces from that title. And I'll explain this envelope. It's all of the mail was censored that came into the camps. So they were sliced open and they were read and they were censored and redacted. And then they were stapled back together. And that's what you see on the right side of this envelope that was sent to my mother. I think it was some kind of a bill that they had. And then they stamped each one, Detained Alien Enemy Male Examined. So that is why I called the next 3 projects that I did that by that title. And the first one that I worked on was a documentary, and I call that Detained Alien Enemy. What I did was I interviewed some of my relatives, some friends, and some acquaintances. And I wanted to get some short stories from them about their memories from camp. And because I wanted to have a number of people, they could only really talk for maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes. So each story is really short. And they gave me some photographs of themselves and their families while they were being incarcerated. And so I used those photographs in the documentary. And I also decided to make a light box with some of the photographs inside. And so this, because I work with glass sometimes, I had the envelope covers, the fronts of the envelope, I had them made into decals, and then I fused them onto the windows of this frame. And then on the inside, let me see. Yeah, on the inside, I placed the bottles where I had fused the decals onto the bottle. And then I put water in there, and then you can see that it adds as a magnifying glass. And it's kind of like you're seeing their stories are being magnified. And it's called, this one's called Detained Alien Enemy Illuminated. That's what the box is called. And then the third piece that I made with help from my husband is Detained Alien Enemy, and it's the glass kimono, which my daughter Melissa is wearing, and she's the great granddaughter of Risa Burrows in Hanai. And I just thought, because I can't wear the kimonos anymore, I have some problems with my knee, and I'm now a weakling. You have to be pretty strong to carry it around. But I had my daughter wear it, and the background is of Manzanar. And I had taken that picture when I went there for a pilgrimage one year. And even in the years before I went to the pilgrimage, I had taken another kimono there, and I wore it in Manzanar. And I walked around to honor my ancestors who were incarcerated there. So when I made this new kimono, Detained Alien Enemy kimono, I had my daughter wear it, and then I superimposed, well, actually my cousin Susie, the graphic designer, superimposed it over that photograph. And this is a close-up of some of the photographs that were on there, that are on there. And the one in the middle is a picture of my mother and my auntie Haru, and they graduated from Crystal City High while they were in the camp. They graduated from high school there. And on the right side, you see a Christmas tree. It's kind of a makeshift Christmas tree. And Michiko was there, and she had 2 children who were born in the camp. And at the top middle, it's kind of cut off, but that's a picture of my Auntie Lola and Uncle Tony, Anthony, while they were in the camps. So each one of these has a story to it. Oh, okay. This is what the kimono sounds like. That was at my MFA show in back in 2004, and my daughter and I both were our glass ancestral kimonos. I've actually made 5 of them, and so that was kimono 2 that I was wearing, and it was also, no, it was kimono 1 and 2. They were both ancestral kimonos. Kimono 1 was so heavy when I made it, because it was all double pane window glass, that I could barely move in it. And she was stronger than I, so she wore it. And I wore the second kimono that I made, which was made out of single pane window glass. Okay, so now we are looking at the book again, the book that Susie put together. And what it shows this page because I wanted to show you some of the work that my grandfather did in camp, because he was called the Fixment Man at Crystal City, and he had a little trailer. And in that trailer, he had all these tools that he could fix everybody's broken appliances and whatever. And so he used recycled produce crates and pieces of wood and wood that he found. And he made so many different items. And he made several of these chest of drawers, and he made a few of these gettas for his wife, Kitty, my grandmother. And he also made ink stands, and he made a fishing tackle box. And each of the family members has something of his that he made. So two of my uncles were in the Boy Scouts, and my mom was a Girl Scout, and my Auntie Haru and my Auntie Sets were both Girl Scouts. So they were, trying to be good citizens, and they're trying to make life as normal as they could while they were in the camps. And remember, my family was there for 4 years. I mean, together with being in Manzanar and 3 years, 1 year in Manzanar and 3 years in Crystal City in the desert, not knowing when they were going to be able to leave. So this one I called They Might Be Spies. These are clothes that I found in these trunks that were under the tractor shed when after our farm was sold and was going to be demolished. So all the relatives were invited to come over there and take whatever we wanted. And so I found these old clothes, and my uncles and my aunts were with me. And we're all rummaging through those trunks. And they were so surprised because they remembered wearing them in the camp. And I guess that's one thing about not throwing anything away. My grandmother saved everything. She sent the good clothes, the ones that were in pretty good condition. She sent those to Japan, and then she kept the ones that she had patched up, but she never threw anything away. So she had all of those, and it's pretty amazing to look at these patched up pants, because they were patched over and over. They're patched in the crotch, they were patched in the butt, they were patched in the knees, and she had to make those clothes last while they were in camp, especially because they didn't have the extra money to be buying more clothes. So I have those. That's what I took. I took the clothes, and also the vest. That vest was one that she made in camp. She collected leftover yarn from the different other people who were doing knitting, and she made this vest because it was freezing in the winter, really cold in the winter in the desert in Texas. So she made that vest, and she wore it underneath her coat and in the winter. And then she brought that vest home with her to the farm, and she wore it on the farm. And my mom said she remembered watching her wear this vest when it was cold on the farm. This is my mom, Midori's graduation picture from high school, from Crystal City High. And she loved school. She absolutely loved school. The teachers loved her. And then she had to leave her high school class because she was being arrested. And it was very disappointing for her, because when she got to Manzanar, she couldn't go to school. She had to work in the mess hall. So she missed that year that they were in Manzanar of high school. And then when they got to Crystal City, she missed another year. And finally, when she got to go to her high school class, she ended up being in the class with her sister who was almost 2 years younger. So my Auntie Haru said she felt like my mom kind of felt bad about being in the class with her younger sister. So my mom was very disappointed about that, but she did graduate from high school and she wanted to go to college so badly. But when they came back from the farm, I mean, from the camp, the farm it was really in bad shape because they had some renters who did not take care of it and they totally trashed the place. So they had to put the farm back together. And my mom, she tried to go to City College, but she ended up having to drop out and had to work because they didn't have much money there. And so she never got to college. She never got to go because she ended up having me. And then after me, she had four more children, which were all boys. So she didn't get to go to college. And I would say most of her life, that's the one thing that she wished that she could have done, because she mentioned it to me several times. So I was born in 1950, and my grandmother actually was the one who took care of me, because my mom had she had a severe breakdown the day after I was born. So yeah, she forgot that she had a baby, which is kind of sad. Anyway, we all got over that, and but she had a hard life. My dad had a hard life. So anyways, so I think because I bonded with my grandmother and I went there for every vacation, I made artwork about my grandma, and this was one of them. And what I remember about her was she was a really hard worker, and she was very generous, and she used to have these canisters around the house, and then she also used recycled See's candy boxes and put money in there and give us children. When we came to visit her, she'd give us money every time we went to see her. She'd give us coins and dollar bills, and we'd all be so happy. So when she died, I took that canister and to remember that she did that. And then I found that piece of material in one of the trunks, and there were all these little stitches on it. So I decided that I wasn't going to throw it away. And then I ended up putting her life story on that piece of cloth. You know what? I'm hearing some kind of noise. Is that me, or is that somebody doesn't have their microphone muted? Oh, that's Pallavi. Okay, thanks. Oh. Okay, so so when I found out the farm was going to be demolished, I was telling my friend Sambod, and he's a carpenter and a master shoji screen maker, and so he said, "Oh, I'll go with you, and we could take out some of the wall." So we went down there and cut out 12 feet of the wall, and with my Uncle Mitz's help, we got that in the van and drove it back up to 300 miles back up to where I live and where my studio is. And I've taken that wall around to different venues, galleries, and museums. And sometimes I have done the performance in front of it. And I call it the egg house wall. And what I do is I go from when I was a child. I try to pretend like I was a child, and then in the time, I think it's about 10 minutes, in the time it takes me to go through the performance, I transform into my grandmother. So here I am my younger self. And then, okay, now what happened? Let's see here. I'm going to have to change this thing too. Okay. Okay, it's going to start going by itself. Okay, so there I am transformed into my grandmother. And so we took the door too. And so this is the door. Okay, let me see if I could stop this now. What's going on here? Escape. Okay, sorry. Yeah, the door now holds the timeline of the Inaugura family. And the chair down here is a chair that my grandfather made while he was in the camp. So my most recent project that I've been involved with is a collaboration with 3 very talented Sansei women. And there's 4 other Sansei women. And one of them is Naomi Sintani, and another one is Kathy Fujioka, another one is Ellen Bepp, and then Sherry DeBoer. And we're all part of AWA, the Asian American Women's Artists Association. So we got together and decided we're going to go to Manzanar for our pilgrimage, and so we could honor all the people who were incarcerated during World War II, and then also our family. So we went to the pilgrimage, and then the next day we did our own rituals. And this one was honoring the Native Americans whose land it was. And then it's also the same spot where my ancestors stayed in their barrack, right on this spot. Okay, so now I'll just talk a little bit about my art as a medium for activism. And I went to Crystal City with a group called Suda for Solidarity. And we wanted to have a pilgrimage to the Crystal City Alien Enemy Detention Center, where my family was incarcerated, along with some other families that I met at the pilgrimage. And also it was a place where they held Germans and Italians. So I think that's the name, Alien Enemy, or Enemy Alien. It's been called both. And then about an hour away, there was the largest detention center for immigrants, mostly coming from Central America. And so we went there because we wanted to protest the inhumane conditions that were happening there. So we took, I think it was 25,000 of these origami birds that people sent from all over the country. And we hung them on the wall. I mean, not the wall, but the fence. So we couldn't see the people in there, and they couldn't see us. But the taiko drums and all the noise we were making out there, we were hoping that they could hear us. So I documented the trip, and that was kind of my art that I did for that trip. And another thing that I've done is I've made for the 2018 midterm elections, I made a number of vote pins, and then I had workshops where I let people make the vote pins using my equipment that I brought over there. And then my cousin Susie, the one who worked on the book, our Inaugura Farm book, I wish I should have made a group of her pins, but hers is the one that says vote on it in big letters. It says carry enough to vote. She made quite a few of those. So I sent out, well, I distributed to different people about 1,000 of those pins. And then I've been kind of playing with this model printing technique that I've learned and practiced and taught myself for the last 2 years. And I started playing around trying to make kind of political cards. And this one is of Trump's famous photo op with William Barr in the back over here, and Ivanka over there, and some of the other people on his staff. So they're walking over there to be in this photo op in front of St. John's Church. And so then I started making vote early cards, postcards to send out. And I did all kinds of designs, and I sent them to about, well, I didn't actually, a friend of mine, Joby, she addressed them and sent them, wrote something on them and sent them over to some of the swing states to remind the Democrats to vote. And then recently I've been collaborating with some other artists, photographers. And so Bob Shang, a well-known photographer in the Bay Area, let me use this image of Yuri Kochiyama, which I printed up several of them as part of the fundraiser for the Asian American Women's Artists Association. And that was a lot of work. It took me about 6 weeks. And then the last collaboration that I've done is with Lenore Chin, a talented artist and photographer. And she went to the rally last weekend for the Bay to Atlanta, I think it was called Bay to Atlanta rally. And she took pictures, and I saw them on Facebook, some of them on Facebook. So I asked her if I could make some monoprints out of them. So that's what these are, the next few. I think that's the last one. So, so you get an idea of what kind of art I do, and how I do it. So I think that's it. Pallavi, are you around, Pallavi? I don't see you.
I was muted. Thank you so much, Reiko. That was fabulous. Thank you for talking about your activism, your art, and how your family history is like integral part of your work. And though we couldn't get to see your documentary film, but my students have seen it, the Detained Alien Enemy, and the other documentary as well. Uh, it's amazing how you delve deep into all these issues in such an intricate way and talk about immigration, memory loss, and in your work, the detained alien enemy, the kimono, uh, and thank you for bringing that video for us, and we could hear the sound. And I have seen your performance in person, and it's amazing to see that we can't feel the weight of it right now, like by seeing it, but by hearing the noise of those, pictures and the glassware, uh, it just it's really s- brings out all those the memories which you were talking about, being in concentration camp, being alienated from the mainstream life, and how unjust it is. So thank you for talking about all those issues, even talking today about your activism. Before we switch over to question and answer session, I know we are running short of time. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your talk and joining us today, on behalf of CCA at CCA over here.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
thank you. Thank you. So maybe